Okay, so the other thing I wanted to tell you about was the timeline shifts. Now, I have to be honest, like, I don't 100% understand what's happening when we go through a timeline shift, but I assume that it's along the lines of whatever timeline we've been on in our lives, because we are going through upgrades, because we are advancing on our spiritual awakening process, and our soul paths. We reach like, actually, you know what's coming to my head right now? I'm sure it's from Spirit. When you're playing a video game and you like finish a level, like I guess how you say it would depend on what you're playing, but like you defeat the bad guy, you conquer the level or whatever. Sometimes in life it really might be defeating the bad guy, especially when you're dealing with spiritual warfare, right? But whatever it is, you finish your mission, you finish that level, and you advance to the next one. So I feel like that's the best way to explain timeline shifts. So there's been a couple times that I have experienced them super obviously. I think that most people go through timeline shifts without realizing it. I think usually it's not obvious. There will just be like subtle changes and things that wouldn't be, like they'd be so subtle that if you even noticed, you'd like probably dismiss it as not a big deal. You guys may have seen my video from 1 or 2 years ago. I don't remember when it was, but I think it was 2 years ago. Or either that or it might have been the beginning of last year. Maybe it was, I should look and see when it was actually. I wonder if it was a year before the one I experienced this year. Now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to go and look. But yeah, that timeline shift, I literally I don't remember what I was doing other than that I was looking at my phone, and I watched the clock on my phone change. The minutes changed from, I'm pretty sure it went from 20 to 22 and skipped 21. Or it might have gone from 19 to 21 and skipped 20. I can't remember. But it was just basically that. Like, the exact minute doesn't matter. What matters is that it skipped a minute. And I literally watched the clock on my phone skip a minute. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck just happened? And I realized later on that that was like my sign that I was going through a timeline shift. So that I thought was like really cool. But I didn't see, there wasn't anything else that I experienced at that time that was really obvious. So at the beginning of February, I think it was the beginning of February, it might have been the last week of January, I went through a timeline shift again. And what's really interesting about that to me is, at least for me personally, at the beginning of January, my twin went through his Kundalini awakening. I actually felt it. I had sent him something, I don't even remember what, but I wanted to know his reaction to it. It was probably like a message, an impactful message. So I wanted to know his reaction to it, and I have been, rather than just like asking for a description, I have been instead connecting to his energy to feel his reaction to it. So I asked to connect, or I set the intention, I should say, to connect to his energy and feel his reaction. And I felt all of this like intense energy in his crown and third eye chakras, and as well, I can't even remember it all, but there was something else in my body as well. Oh, I wish I could remember it so I could describe it properly. I think I want to say I felt something like coming up from like basically from the root chakra up, which is, I'm sure many of you know, Kundalini awakening, but I didn't realize what I was picking up from him at the time because, well, for one, like I was focusing on him instead of me, so I wasn't thinking of it in that way. And I also I happen to know that my Kundalini is awakened, but it awakened at a point in time when I wasn't as aware and didn't realize, so I didn't like connect the dots, and so now I'm just used to it and I don't always feel that energy rising. So feeling that energy rising for me, for him, was a different experience. So I thought that it was really cool when I connected to him and I felt that. I went back to Spirit. I was like, what was that? What did I feel? And they said, you felt his Kundalini awaken. I'm like, oh, that's really good. So definitely, obviously, that's good progress for him. But I think it's very interesting that his Kundalini awakened at the beginning of January, and then the end of January, beginning of February, I experienced this timeline shift. So what happened? One day, I took my daughter to school, and on the way home, I'm listening to the radio. One of my favorite songs comes on. It's a newer song, so it hasn't been my favorite song for long, but since like November at least, and being one of my new favorite songs, I've listened to it a lot. I have the words memorized. I sing along. Well, I'm singing along to one of my favorite songs on the radio, and part of the chorus, one sentence in the chorus, was different. Like, it was reversed. It wasn't 100% different. It was the same words, but in a different order. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I know that was not the lyric. Like, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because I know that it was not praying and hoping, it was hoping and praying. I'm 100% sure. And let me tell you that my brain is still fighting with that. Like, we're a month later, and every time I hear the song now, my brain is still like, it's hoping and praying. It's not praying and hoping. But now, every time I hear it, it's praying and hoping. But I swear to God, for 2 months at least, it was the opposite. And I was like, what the fuck? And then, same drive, same day, same drive, I had gone somewhere. I don't remember where. But I had gone somewhere, and I was driving on a different, I can see it in my head, that's why. Where I was doesn't really matter. So let me not focus on that. But I was driving, I was trying to change the radio station, and I kept hitting the forward button, but the station wasn't changing. Like, it kept going back and forth between these two stations. It was not going past that. It was like, I would hit forward on the one and it would go back to the last one, and then I would hit forward and it would go to the one I was just on, and then it would go back again. Like, it just kept going like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, even though I kept hitting the forward button and it should have gone past them to, continue. So that happened several times, like enough times that I literally stopped in my car and I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, I feel like I am caught in a loop. Maybe I was caught in the timeline shift loop. I don't know. But first, within the same car drive, the lyric changed on my favorite song, and I got stuck in a little loop there with the radio, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I feel like I'm in a parallel universe, which is real, so I don't know, maybe I was for a second. I ended up talking to my colleague Jennifer, who we do the workshops together, and she was like, oh, you're definitely experiencing a timeline shift, but thought I was crazy for a second. And there was a few other things that happened that they weren't as obvious. Like, the next day I was driving, I remember I said to her, I'm like, in today's episode of Jessica's timeline shift, I could see so clearly and like detailed. Like, I said to her, I'm like, I feel like I'm Bella in Twilight Breaking Dawn, when all of a sudden her vision is like super focused, like even more to where she can see the tiny little details of everything. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, that's what it felt like, although not to that extreme. But I was driving, I was like, I feel like I can see everything so much more detailed. And that actually only lasted for like a day, but still. Of course, I can't remember what else there was. It was just like little minor things. But there was definitely some very obvious things at the time, and I'm like, wow. And of course, Spirit has been talking about this, and there are other spiritual teachers talking about it too, and there's astrologers and whatnot who are all talking about the timeline shifts happening. I know it's related to ascension, and it's also related to our individual twin flame journeys and soul journeys and things that are happening. So I know that many of you are experiencing timeline shifts as well. In fact, the 222 workshop that Jennifer and I did, part of it was geared at like anchoring and protecting and integrating the timeline shifts that started with the 2-2 portal, which was when I experienced mine, and then continued throughout the month through the 222, and probably still continuing as well. So I just had to share that with you guys because I was so blown away and like, what the hell? But anyway, share your stories with me too. I'm going to try and record again soon some more twin flame talks, and I'll talk to you guys later.